Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our next speaker, Yishai Beeri, presenting the topic, DevOps 2.0, bigger, better with more automation.
Thank you, everyone. Great being here. Especially excited to be at Vilnius for the first time. Like you mentioned, I have roots here. So 100 years ago, my grandfather started his life. He was about 20 years old. Started life, and you know what's the best vocation? We were all in this space. It was technology. So he went to study at the Orta Technicum here in downtown, the old town of Vilnius. Technology has changed a lot in the last 100 years. I looked at the list of subjects that they learned in the school. Some names are familiar. A lot has changed. So fast forward, and we're all doing DevOps. We're writing code. We're using pull requests. And I'm going to talk about the next things that are coming in this space, the next challenges facing all of us as developers, pushing code to production, and continuous merge as a suggested approach to solving and addressing some of these problems. A little about myself. I'm from Israel, from Tel Aviv. I'm the CTO of a startup called LinearB, operating obviously in this space, and happy to be here. I'm going to talk about CI/CD and some gaps and some challenges that are starting to, or have already started and are growing fast in this world. I'm going to dive a little into data and research that we have to show about the dynamics of what it takes to get code all the way to production. I'm going to talk about bots, and I'm going to start thinking step by step into what a solution could look like. How do we address and what are the building blocks that we need to address these challenges? So I'm starting with a brief history of software development and delivery. Way back when I was beginning my career, we had waterfall. PRDs and giant Gantt charts that you would put on the wall, and they would get outdated the minute you printed them. And you released every 9 months, every 2 years, depending on how you worked. Some organizations still live in this world, but the majority of the world has moved forward. In the 90s, in the 2000s, we started doing agile, and now we have sprints and story points and planning and stand-ups and a lot of I would say religious debate about what is agile, how to do it right, why is it not working for me, or is it working for me, and so on. And then DevOps, a little newer, another name, which is trying to bridge what happens between the code and the runtime. Am I a developer and I'm an ops person? Is there a difference? All of that. But now something is changing. And this is like a teaser. I'm gonna show more data in a bit. So the bots are coming. Then there's two types of bots, two rough classes in this space, and I'll talk about why this is interesting. We are starting with the stupid bots. Anyone here using Dependabot in their organization? Renovate something to manage dependencies? I see quite some hands. These are examples of pretty simple rule-based bots, typically for compliance or security or other reasons. And their job is to create a pull request for you with, let's bump a library version of something you're using because it's no longer the latest, there has a vulnerability. It's a nice automated way to keep my code base up to date. They are creating PRs. They are creating a lot of pull requests. Someone has to deal with them. So that's already starting, and we'll also show some numbers in a bit. That's already starting to shift some dynamics in how code and what code is getting created and pushed, how systems are changing. And then just around the corner, there's the smart bots. Anyone using Copilot or similar technology to write code, to write tests? So the focus so far has been mostly on helping me in the IDE, but we're already seeing multiple vendors and Copilot not lagging much behind, creating bots that actually write code, write pull requests, like create code, put up a PR, and sometimes help you review a PR, write tests. So it's no longer an assistant for me as a developer. It's becoming even more autonomous. So let's park this thought for a minute, but remember that the bots are coming. CI/CD, like a very simplified view of what happens as developers work and get their code all the way to production. I write my code, I fix the bug, I write the feature, then I create a pull request. Who is using pull requests in their day-to-day job here? Everyone. Who prefers to call them merge requests? Okay, GitLab people. Nice. I create a PR. Sometimes that begins some CI jobs. Some tests are beginning to run, maybe build. All kind of assisted ways to let me know that the code is okay. The PR gets merged after some debate. And then there's an integration test, additional work, and then CD hopefully, or some version who has a fully blown CD automatic deploy once you merge to production. Yeah, this is very few, probably 5 or 6 people here. This is a promise that is yet to materialize, but it's the holy grail, right? Code is great. It's merged. Now it's in production. People are getting there, but even if it's not completely automated, someone has to push a button. There's a lot of automation about making that move. No one, I hope, is FTPing to servers to put the binary there. I used to do that a lot in the old times. So methods to push the code all the way to production, with containers. A lot of work in the DevOps world is about the last part, deploying and then managing the runtime. I'm going to focus on developers, not on the runtime. So when we look at the actual patterns, what happens is in this step between pull request and merge, code is getting stuck. When I write my code, I'm using Copilot. It helps me. I have this big Control-C, Control-V keyboard with Stack Overflow. Everything is nice. That's me, and I'm not blocked, hopefully. Then I put up a PR, and now I have to wait. So if you look at how we split the time, what we call cycle time, which is a measurement of how long does it take me or the organization to take a task from beginning to end. First part is coding. That's me working. If I know what I'm doing and I'm not too overloaded and I don't have too many boring meetings, I can get this going fast. Pickup is how long does it take for someone to take my pull request and begin to review it. It's basically waiting in the queue for someone. Then review is the time that it takes for all the comments, questions, back and forth, all the way until we agree and get this piece of code merged. So there's a lot of back and forth, at least 2 people involved, maybe more. And it takes days in many cases. And finally, there's the deployment. How long between when the code is merged and all the way to production? Obviously, this depends on your CD practices, what is your production like, and so on. This is typically out of the hands of developers. So we can invest in CD to make it happen sooner. But we want to know how long my code is waiting. It's already done. It's in the main branch, but it's not yet released. The main bottleneck is in the middle. Is this familiar? Does anyone here feel similar patterns when they're working on code, waiting to get a review and waiting for the review cycle to finish? Yeah, at least some people here. So this is, and that's what we're focusing on. That's what the data shows us. There is a lot of empty or wait time happening here. And this means context switching. If I'm waiting for something, I have to get back to it in 2 days after someone gave me a review. This is an expensive context switch. I already forgot what I was doing here. I'm busy with my next feature. So this back and forth is very expensive. And this is where developers are getting frustrated. You ask a developer, do you like to produce, have your code in production to produce value? Do you like to merge? They say yes. It's a dopamine rush to merge my PR. Frustration is, it works for me. There's a CI, flaky test, that, and then waiting for the review. Okay, everything is ready. I'm done. Why is it taking 3 days to get some LGTM comment for someone? A lot of frustration, a lot of dead time, a lot of context switch, and things are not getting better. I want to double click into some research that we have a lot of data visible to us because we connect with our customers, get providers, and fetch all the metadata. We have tens of thousands of teams on our free offering, so we have a lot of data coming in. And now we can start understanding what are the patterns. Is this really a problem? When does it happen? And so on. So one very obvious thing that we see is that pull requests, if you look at their life cycle when PR was created all the way until it's merged, most of the time they're idle. Nothing is happening. And when I'm saying idle, it's not just, some half an hour passed by with no change. It's in no one's mind. It's out of focus or out of, like swapped out from everyone's mind for hours. So you look at this, about half of the PRs are idle. No one is looking at them about half of their time, like the life cycle. A PR is up for 3 days, 1.5 days is going to be idle. Completely, no one has touched it in hours. And a third are idle for even more, like 80% of their time. They're mostly wait. They're sitting there and waiting. And there's no movement, nothing is getting merged. All this great value is not making it to production to help your users, to give you a feedback loop. And remember the context switch for developers. What we also see is once a delay has begun, you're already slow with dealing with a PR, it gets even longer. So of the PRs that are spanning more than 1 day, half of them are idle for like 80% of their time. If a pull request can be done, created and merged in 1 day, that's a huge win. And we see that the more delays are in the beginning of the PR, the longer it will take overall. So one thing that, if you can get into a same day PR, that's going to save you and your team so much trouble and so much time and frustration. Remember the bots. So now we have some data. For dev orgs that are using a dependency management bot like Renovate or Dependabot or Snyk or others, almost 14%, 13.3% of the PRs that they actually merged are created by the bot. So it's not like a side thing. This is, and we have, we're seeing customers typically on the larger and enterprise customers with 25% of the PRs created by bots. So of everything we do, of everything we review and merged, 10 to 20% is not even human created. And this is just the beginning. We'll think about the co-pilots and the others, making it so much easier to create code. And you look at the Dependabot PRs, about 40% of them are dead simple. This is a patch update for a library, like the very, very minor version. And it's just sitting there waiting for someone to have attention, to take a look. In many cases, what do you eventually do with these PRs? Let's try, right? The tests are passing. I'll LGTM it and see what happens. Most people don't actually go and do manual testing or review the release notes for a patch release. Obviously, this differs and not all libraries are the same, but there's a huge amount of work, which is basically toil, just waiting to get, and it gets in your way. You open a pull request view in GitHub, it's all Dependabot stuff, unless someone is on it. This frustration is not going to get better. There's more incoming on the code side with, once those LLMs or Gen AI bots mature, which is, in 6 months, they are starting to create 10x more code, more PRs for you. You already have a bunch of automated PRs just with Dependabot. Think about all the others. This is like an incoming, I don't know what's the best metaphor, avalanche of PRs, of code that no human created and has to go through the same funnel, the same pipeline. Someone has to review it. Someone has to say it's okay. Someone has to merge it and then deploy it. So this frustration is not going to get better. And the question you should all be thinking about is our process, is my pipeline, not the build pipeline. I'm not concerned about builds, right? Spend a few more dollars on the build machines. The builds will happen in time. The human pipeline, the merge decisions, the reviews, these are going to break if I'm not changing something dramatic, because my inputs are going to be completely different. So that's the problem statement. We're already seeing the problem even before the bots, and now the bots make it even harder. And think about, you are getting a review from one of these nice icons, a PR, and how do you review a pull request that was created by a bot? How do you defend a pull request that no one created? Who's going to reply to your comments? Who's going to take ownership? Like, this is a code that no one read, no one wrote, and no one knows how to review. So all of these things are challenges in my pipeline to get my code in good quality all the way to production. So now that we've laid out the challenge, what is missing? And now is the part where I'm trying to build layer by layer a solution, or what do we need? What are the building blocks we need for helping the developers and the people that are responsible to get code merged and deployed, help them do it with and maintain their sanity. So a few pillars here. One, we have knowledge. Developers to do a good job in creating their code. Remember, my PR has to compete with all these bot PRs and all the others and get a good review. For me as a developer, I need to know who should review this. In many cases, in large organizations, it's not always clear who the reviewer should be. I can spend 2 days just hunting for the right person. So I'm going to ask someone. If they're not the right person, they're going to ignore me, typically. So just finding the right reviewer in itself, it's a piece of knowledge that many people are missing. Or maybe the reviewer says, yeah, I can review, but there's another person. Or maybe let's find a better one or someone to work with me. That's all knowledge, which is hard to find. Understanding what is the process, what do I need to do to get this merged? Every development organization has some different process, like a unwritten lore of what it takes to get a good PR, to have it actually reviewed and merged. Sometimes you have a list that you need to fill in. Sometimes, everyone knows that you should also do this and this, but actually no one knows. If I'm new in the team, no one tells me. So learning in the hard way, what is even required of me so my code can get merged? And what's the best way? This is like some soft skills. I know we developers are not always great with soft skills. What I need to, how do I push this forward? Who do I nag? When do I nag? Do I even nag? How do I get this done? This is all knowledge that developers can benefit and have a easier life if they have this. For the reviewers, in many cases, what they're missing is context. I get this big wall of red and green in GitHub. Okay, why is this code written? What is it for? What is the change actually doing here? Is it urgent? Should I do this now, or maybe in 2 hours when I have more time? How long will it take me? What's the safety or risk levels here? So all of this is context that can help reviewers make better decisions. Even at do I even start right now? One thing that we've seen very successful in helping the reviewers do the right thing, we have a nice machine learning model that says, this review is going to take you 20 minutes. It's like estimated review time. Like you have with articles on the web, says reading time, similar with review time. And now you can choose. It's at a 2-minute review. I have this now between meetings, I can do it, or this is actually going to take you 30 or 40 minutes. You maybe want to schedule it after lunch. So just having the context up front in the notification that I get about the pull request waiting for me, understanding how long, is this a big one or a small one, a complex one, that helps me make right decisions. The next part is about flexibility and automation. And recall the bot problem that I mentioned. If I'm automating the inputs for the system, resulting in a 10x or 50x input size problem, and I'm not automating what happens next, I am bound to fail. There's no way we humans can keep up if we keep doing the same. So there's 2 parts here. Flexibility is about, should all PRs actually go through the very same process all the time? Everyone has to review a PR, every PR needs a review. We all basically use a single process, a single threaded process for every PR. They all look the same. And we should ask ourselves, is this true? Should all PRs get processed in the same way? And I'm saying no. So flexibility. I'll show some examples. And automation. Are there places where I can skip a human review? Maybe this is a pull request to change the documentation line. Maybe there's no need for a coder or developer to review this. Or someone has changed a static asset in like your website. There's no need for me to review this. It's not code. And there's many more examples. Can we skip some reviews sometimes and automate those away? Patch updates from Dependabot. No one is actually looking at the code, right? It's just a number in a requirements file or similar. So why do I need a human to say LGTM? Can I remove toil? That's all toil that we can reduce and automate to match the automated inputs. On the other side, are there places where my pull request needs a more complex workflow? I need to pull in someone from the security team and make them a required approver for this PR. Why? Because there's a security issue here. Someone is touching the API. Someone is changing a port. Many ways in which we can say, this needs more. So I can do less on some PRs, and I can do more in a structured way on some PRs. Now I can be smarter about how I review my code. So flexibility and automations. And finally, visibility. If you're managing this problem, you need to measure stuff. You need to understand how long are we waiting for PRs? Is there a bottleneck somewhere? Is there a single person who's doing all the reviews and now they're away for 3 days and everyone's stuck? So visibility into bottlenecks, visibility into the patterns is another layer that you have to manage this problem at scale. To know how much to invest there, to know how much this is hurting you, and so on. I mentioned the estimated review time. This is a graph, again, from our data showing the impact of knowing ERT into pickup. So on the x-axis, you see the pickup time. How long did it take for the pull request to get the first comment, the first review artifact? Basically, how long did it wait? And, sorry, on the x-axis is the estimated review time. This is the message we gave the reviewers. This is how long it's going to take you, bucketed into different. So, and on the y is how long the PR waited in the queue. And you can see, if the PR is small, and the signal is that this is a very quick win for you, you can review this in a few minutes, the pickup time is very short. If we told the developers, the reviewers, this is going to take you almost an hour, then pickup time goes way up. So reviewers are responding to that signal and making different decisions on when to start. This is not about completing the review, it's when I start the review. So just knowing that this is small makes it happen sooner, which is a win for everyone. Okay, so some examples about flexibility and automation that I mentioned. So ship, show, ask is a nice model, one way to think about the problem instead of having one process for PRs. This is a framework that says, for some changes, we trust the developers enough that they just ship it. Okay, that's the first one. Just merge your code. For some cases, you ship it and then you tell everyone. So I'm showing you, hey, everyone, notice that I pushed this, but I'm not waiting for your inputs. And finally, the third one is ask. Ask is what we typically do for every PR all the time, right? Here's a pull request. I need the permission or a review before it gets merged. So this is what we do for everything. Think about the ability to do a ship, show, ask model. And again, obviously you need to decide what goes into which bucket. But those are huge gains if you can choose the right pull request, the right kind of changes, where obviously everything gets checked. There's good tests, there's good coverage. You're not just doing, writing cowboy. But still, you don't have to go through the longer process all the time. So this is a popular model. It's not popular in action, but everyone is, it's a good way to think about the flexibility problem. Now let's think about what it takes to build a solution to start powering these kinds of things. Remember, we talked about knowledge, about context, about flexibility, automation, and about visibility. So when I'm building something like this, I need to think about, okay, what are the capabilities that a solution needs? Who runs it? Where does it run? How does this scale to work with 50 developers or 5,000 developers? There's different considerations, not just the scaling of the whatever engine is running this, but also the management questions. How do I create a set of rules that I can apply to my entire organization and also give some specific groups autonomy to do something else? So overrides, defaults, all of that. And some ideas, just kind of use cases I can do with such a solution. So like a linter for pull request, right? If the pull request is not nice enough, return it to the issuer with a comment saying, this is missing A, this is missing B. You're missing a link to your Jira ticket. No need for someone to review this for you. This is automatic. I can help you find the right Jira ticket and plug it in, but this is basically a cycle where the bot can return the PR to the issuer and say, this is missing something. We have a little of this with templates and so on, but now this can be automated all the way. Notifying the reviewers or the developer when the tests are passing. I create a pull request. As a reviewer, I don't want to review your code before the tests are all passing, right? Sometimes I'm pulling up a pull request and CI starts to run. It's not even green. Maybe I don't want to review your code when it's not ready. So notify me at the right time. And prioritizing my PRs, doing selective builds and CIs, all of that smartness. Let's look at some additional building blocks around context. How do I add context? One very easy way is to add labels. We use labels in PRs to help the reviewers and the people in the repo find their way. So now I can see, this is an example of how various projects use labels with colors to help navigate. I can add comments. Something adds a comment in the PR. This is now additional context for the reviewer. Better title, description. Can I help that? We are already seeing Copilot and other players help with creating some context. They push some reviews, and like an initial review, they try to help you with improving your description or creating the PR description. So there's assisted reviews in some fashion. That's all part of context. There's badges, right? People use badges on the repo, maybe on PRs to let you see at a glance the status of things. Thanks. And obviously Jira or whatever you're using for project management, the ticket, the why behind the pull request. Some things I can do with like a building blocks for helping me with getting the review. So what about finding the best reviewer or finding someone to review my code? We get some very minimal help from GitHub and similar with suggestions, but can we do this smarter? Can you help me understand what I should be looking at or focusing on when I'm looking at this pull request? Is there a way for me to dynamically change who should be reviewing? Like I mentioned, maybe pull someone from security or from architects group or whatever, depending on the change that's happening in here. Maybe a security scanner is running on my code and has some findings. Based on these findings, pull in the right person from security. Now they're a gate. Now they're a required reviewer. That kind of flexibility around reviews can help me a lot. And also changing the number of required reviewers. So going from 1 to 0, in some cases, that's ship show ask, right? Going from 2 to 1, if you're working in a bank or a similar regulated industry, there's going to be we have some customers that require 2 reviewers on every PR. Think about all that work. Can I carve out 10%, 15% of those PRs where we can relax and only have 1 reviewer? That's a huge saving. So that's just examples of the kind of flexibility you want in such a solution. Obviously, what happens with checks and builds and tests, deciding when to run the tests, which tests to run. Maybe I can determine from the change that I don't have to run the whole suite, or I can run a few tests earlier that are have more probability to fail. I want to fail fast. Smart things about my CI, and also understanding how long these items take. And then what can I do on the PR? Again, we're thinking about automation. Can I reject it with some comments to the reviewer? Like skip a review cycle, basically do it for automatically. Or just approve it get the right reviewers and so on. And if I'm very brave, merge it automatically or close it. Like, yeah, this PR touches an area that we've decided to deprecate. No changes allowed here. Shut it down. Or this part is in a freeze right now. For the next 2 days, we're not merging anything. You can automate the reject here. Instead of everyone remember, please not merge here. This branch is now protected for 2 days. These are all very relevant use cases. And then measurements, measure the delay, the handoff. We talked, like, you saw some of this with pickup time and others, but understanding the dynamics, where are things waiting, is crucial for solving the bigger problem of having an efficient and scaled operation around this. And eventually, happier developers. If I get a review faster and my code is merged faster, I can move on and I'm typically happier. Additional considerations when we want to think about building this. Has to be developer friendly. This is for developers. Has to be programmable. Let me code myself out of the problem. So extensible, programmable. Has to live in my version control, right? The rules. How does this automation work? The definitions, they have to be versioned, right? It's like almost table stakes. We talked about scaling. How do I make it work for a team and a group and a organization or multiple BUs in a manageable way? And have audits and metrics around what is this automation doing for me? Has to be extensible. I want to be able to trigger something that is unique to my company, a Slack alert or an API call or something. Get some additional context from the outside. All of these require some extensibility. And there's an opportunity for community, right? If I thought about a nice use case or automation or rule for my PRs, maybe this is useful for others. Or maybe I have a problem and others have solved it through some automation. I can reuse that. So a community, a way to share ideas is also a great benefit when you're thinking about the problem. Because typically your automation problems around PRs are not unique to you. In some flavor, someone else has already seen them. Putting it all together, and this is what we have done in our product called Gitstream. But again, I'm putting all the building blocks here. You're thinking about an engine to automate the life cycle of a pull request. And it has to have some way to program it with a rule file or similar, lives in my repo to be versioned. It has to run natively in my pipeline, so GitHub Actions or similar, but I don't want to spin up a whole new method of running automations if I already have that for a lot of my pipeline. It has to be reactive to understanding what's changed. Events in the PRMR, maybe time-based. Yeah, 2 days have passed, now the PR is merged automatically. You had 2 days to review, now merged. That's an example of a modified show method. You have 2 days to review, to comment, but after 2 days, unless someone is objected, that the pull request is merged. So time-based changes. And it has to have those abilities to decorate the PR, to interact with its status, with reviewers, with comments, mentions, all of that. What people do manually, it should be able to replicate and apply the rules to automate. And obviously it has to be measurable, measure itself, measure the PR activity, so you know that it's actually helping you and what it's doing for you. When we have that, we are now extending CI/CD and we're adding the continuous merge part, right? CI/CD is mostly about builds in machines, and we are talking about minutes or hours to minutes. That's a huge gain. CM is about days. Remove that weight of days to get my code reviewed. Move it from 5 days to 3 days to 2 days. It's huge. It's about people. That's why it's so long. That's why there's a lot of substance here. And when you can improve the way you continuously merge, that's when you can handle that incoming influx of bot-generated code. And on top of your, the developers writing code that is important to get a good review for. This is a snippet, an example of what a rule file could look like. In this case, looking at specific areas in my code. If someone touched a gateway, I want to add a specific reviewer, like handle. That's a very nice, simple way in a repo to say this person has to review this area of the code. And code owners is hard to maintain. This is something that's much lighter to work with. And in general, it's all about creating those different review paths or different behaviors for PRs. So you automate and you apply that automation sometimes. Now you have that flexibility to avoid having just one path and one route for all the PRs. Depending on context, depending on what's changed, you can now make decisions and have different flows. So thank you. Now is a good time for questions.
Yeah, and seems on Slido we have one, so I will read it. What are challenges faced in DevOps adoption and implementation? Because the most you talked like about the benefits or what is good,
Yes.
but here about the challenges.
So when you're thinking about like automating your PRs, there's going to be some, a very obvious challenge that sometimes is raised is, hey, compliance. We are SOC 2 type 2, or we have some other compliance. I need to review everything. So guys, this is wrong. SOC 2 does not mandate every PR has to be reviewed. It does mandate that you have a policy and clear rules and that the rules are protected. So it's not everyone can change the rules, but it's okay to have automatic reviews or assisted reviews all the way to automatic merge if this is part of your policy. But compliance in many cases is like a knee-jerk kind of objection. It can and is overcome pretty easily, but that's one thing. And then the other is, there are some habits, right? People are used to working in one way, and until the pain is very strong, it's sometimes hard to shift. On the flip side, we see that developers, and again, this is an approach that is about letting the developers code their way out of the problem, and that typically resonates with developers. If developers are owning the process, then they're easy to adapt such approaches and apply some automation in code-based policies, if you like.
Okay, if the audience has any questions, raise the hand. Okay, we have here. Let's give a mic.
Hi. So the question would be, this continuous merge assumes that there is a person ready to take the PR, right? But it would be again a context switch for that person who needs to make a review. So how to overcome that challenge?
So with continuous merge, we're saying sometimes there's no need for a person. You can automate the review process all the way, have it approved or rejected. In many cases, the PR is not yet there, and you can reject it automatically with a nice comment so the issuer can do a cycle. You've saved a cycle. The idea is that some PRs you can automate and do not require a reviewer. That's net gain for everyone. And then you have time to invest more in the others. Reviewers will need to context switch. And there's methods to lower the cost of context switching. If you're measuring this and you're aware, one very obvious thing is to work on making your PRs smaller. That will help a faster review. But also, as developers and as reviewers, being aware of the context switch leads into very simple solutions. Make it a habit to look at PRs waiting for review after you've already done a context switch, which means after lunch, after a meeting, after, first thing in the morning, right? So you've already paid for a context switch, piggyback some reviews on top of that. That is a smart reviewer's way of reducing that mental load of switching. And we all have mandatory context switches during our day. So leveraging those, but that takes awareness. And sometimes the awareness is because you have a number that's showing you, hey, you're paying a lot for this. So awareness is a great way to reduce the context switch. And then context, like I said, if I know this pull request is going to take me 2 hours, I'm not starting it right now. I'm putting time into my calendar for it. And I've saved myself the context switch of starting and then running into my meeting and then having to continue. So there are ways to be smart about context switches, and reviews are not going away. They're just being smart about them.
One more question from Slido. Can AI help to clear the noise in PRs so the reviewer has an easier time to focus on the critical parts?
Yes. So we are already seeing AI helping with reviews. So it could be about summarizing the code changes. Let me see what happened here. Walking me through the code changes, like giving me a guided tour. Understanding the key areas or what has changed can lead into a great input for this automation. So if AI has determined that this change in the code has an impact on my API endpoints, that could be a great rule input to my building block saying, okay, in this case, I need a review from some person from this team. So AI helps, and it's a great input for some more decisions about automation.
Okay, still 2 minutes we have, so I will ask the last question I see on the Slido. Do you measure automatically merge PRs after 2 days of not being reviewed, and what you do if the number is increasing?
Yeah, so this question is about the example, that use case saying, and again, these are all possible use cases with such an automation engine, about like a TTL for PRs. There's 2 days to review. After that, that's your chance. After that, it gets merged. If you're applying this, yes, you want to measure it, and you want to keep track that this is not becoming like automatic for everyone. It gives you a balance between waiting too long, on one hand, or getting some inputs. People have a chance to look at what they care about. If you apply some smart automation, you can make sure that you are getting the right notifications. You can say, I care about these areas or these kind of changes. Add a rule that pulls me in these cases. So I have a chance to review. And yes, then you would monitor, you would use a solution like LinearB or similar to monitor that trend over time and say, yes, the proportion of those PRs which got merged because of the deadline is maintainable, is small enough. It's not a problem that we need to manage.
Okay, I see the last one question and 1 minute has left. So anyway, how accurate is the estimate review time? Have you ever encountered a quick 5-minute PRs which ended up to required way much more time?
Yeah. So it's a machine learning model. It's not designed or required to be fully accurate. It's designed to give you a good idea of how long this is going to take. And yes, sometimes a one-liner, which looks very simple, could be a rabbit hole that you would need to review like very deeply, or that you would need to debug in production very deeply. We all know that. But as a rule, it's not saying only spend 5 minutes here. But as a rule, it says this is what is expected, and there's a good chance you can finish this review quickly. So probably you're gonna jump on it right now and not wait for tomorrow. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, warm welcome. And thanks Yishai Beeri for your topic presentation, and thanks for the audience. Yeah.